He only lived 3 days after finding this in the basement. True American horror. Welcome back. I'm here. And today we are going to be talking about a story that is guaranteed to keep you up at night. The details of this case are so disturbing, they were kept under wraps for a number of years. We'll get into all of it right after this short message from our sponsor. Our first story comes from the state of Virginia. In 2006, a man named Roger and his friend Danny decided to go down to their basement to get some supplies. However, when they got down there, they found something that absolutely horrified them. The basement was filled with thousands of taxidermy animals. Roger had collected these over the course of many years, and he told Danny that he wanted to show him something even more interesting than that. He led Danny to a hidden part of the basement where there was another door. The door was made of metal, and it was padlocked. Roger used a key to unlock the door, and they both entered inside. The room was dark, but eventually Danny's eyes adjusted to the darkness, and when they did, he saw what Roger had been hiding. There were 8 human bodies hanging from the ceiling. The bodies were suspended by hooks that went through their skin, and they were surrounded by all kinds of strange tools and equipment. Danny screamed and tried to run out of the room, but Roger stopped him and told him to calm down. Roger explained that the people in the room had all died in freak accidents, and he had preserved their bodies so that he could study them. He said that he wasn't going to hurt Danny. He just wanted to show him his collection. But Danny didn't believe him. He knew that Roger was crazy, and he ran away. Danny called the police and told them what he had seen. When they arrived, they found that Roger had taken his own life. They also found the 8 bodies. They were able to identify them, and it turned out that they had all been missing for quite some time. One of the women had been missing for as long as 14 years before they were found. The police also found a number of disturbing artifacts in Roger's house, including chains, locks, handcuffs, electrical wires, a video camera, a meat cleaver, and a pair of scissors. It was clear that Roger had been torturing his victims before killing them. But what had driven him to do this? The police interviewed Roger's neighbors and friends, but no one had any answers. Roger had been a quiet, unassuming man who kept to himself. He had never shown any signs of violence or aggression. In fact, he was known for being a kind and gentle person. This made his crimes even more shocking. After the investigation was over, the police released the names of the victims to the public. One of the names was Sandra Harold. She had been missing since 1989, and her body was found in Roger's basement 17 years later. Sandra's family was devastated. They had never given up hope of finding her alive, but they were grateful to finally have some closure. They also wanted justice for Sandra and the other victims. But who was this monster who had killed them? Roger had been a taxidermist, and he had used his skills to preserve the bodies of his victims. He had arranged them in his basement in a way that made it seem like they were still alive. He had dressed them in clothes and had them posed as if they were sleeping or relaxing. It was a twisted form of immortality, and it was one of the reasons why he had been able to get away with his crimes for so long. Roger had been careful to cover up his tracks. He had disposed of the bodies in a way that made it difficult for the police to link him to them. He had also been evasive when questioned by the police, and he had never given them any reason to suspect him. One of the most disturbing aspects of this case is the fact that Roger had been able to lure his victims into his trap. He had used his charisma and charm to gain their trust, and then he had killed them. He had specifically targeted young women, and he had used a variety of methods to get them to come to his house. In some cases, he had met the women through friends or acquaintances. In other cases, he had picked them up while they were hitchhiking. Once the women were in his house, he had used a combination of threats and seduction to keep them there. He had also kept them chained up in his basement, and he had tortured them before killing them. Roger had been able to get away with his crimes for so long because he had been able to keep his victims' bodies hidden. He had buried them in his backyard or in wooded areas near his house. However, when he was finally caught, the police were able to find the bodies and identify the victims. This brought some closure to the families of the victims, but it also raised new questions. How had Roger managed to get away with his crimes for so long? And what had motivated him to kill? Roger's crimes were eventually brought to light, and he was arrested. However, he was never able to stand trial for his crimes. He took his own life before he could be brought to justice. This left many questions unanswered, and many people feeling outraged. How could someone be so evil? What had possessed Roger to commit such horrific crimes? Unfortunately, we may never know the full story behind what happened in that basement. Roger took his secrets with him to his grave. Many people were horrified when they learned about this case, and they couldn't believe that something so evil could happen in their town. Some people even speculated that there were other victims whose bodies had never been found. Others wondered how many people Roger had managed to escape. But as time went on, the memory of the victims began to fade, and the town moved on. However, for the families of the victims, the pain and suffering never ended. They had lost their loved ones in the most horrific way imaginable, and they would never be able to understand why. Some people believe that Roger was a serial killer, and that he had been preying on young women for many years. Others believe that he was a monster who had no regard for human life. Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain. Roger's crimes were evil, and he will never be forgotten. When it comes to true crime stories, there are some cases that are so disturbing and horrifying that they keep us up at night, wondering how anyone could be capable of such evil. These stories not only captivate us, but also serve as a reminder of the darkness that can exist in our world. From the terrifying tale of Roger the taxidermist, let us know your thoughts on this case. Was Roger truly a monster, or was there something else at play? Your thoughts may surprise us. Also, make sure to stay tuned for more videos like this. Thanks for watching. See you next time.